G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we are reviewing round one, recapping all of the carnage, all of the players that went off, and all of the ideas for our week one trades. Let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. Pointed the goal from inside the centre. Shade from the boundary. Dusty. Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey. You can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, and joined, as always, by the very up and about, happy as ever could be, Luke Rojo. How are you, mate?
Mate, all I can say is, fuck me dead. What a round of fantasy footy.
So, sorry kids if you're listening along, but
Yeah,
there'll be an E on this episode.
Put the explicit tag straight on it, mate. It was, as painful as parts of it were to watch for me, it's why you play AFL Fantasy, isn't it? It follows all the same narratives as footy. You have the ups, you have the downs, you put in the hard work. It doesn't guarantee shit.
So it just so happens that your downs were right from the get-go.
Yeah. Should I monologue straight up? Should I let everyone know why I'm so down?
Yeah, let it rip. Get it off your chest, mate. Let us all know what happened on your weekend round one fantasy footy.
So come Friday sort of afternoon, I was sort of having a look at my structure, and I thought I'm probably one too many rookies on the ground. So
I think you were rocking with 7 last week.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, of the rookie options that I had there, I was confident on 6 of them, and then the 7th would have been a 200k that I wouldn't have been super happy with. It was Chandler. Yeah. At that point. So
I thought confident with Chandler.
So I thought, okay, I'm not confident with Chandler, so I got to rejig things. Obviously, Sherry is named as the solo ruck. So I think to myself, after a bit of consideration, I think,
English before then?
Well, what I do, I had English before then. What I do is I go down to Sherry to get some cash, and then I get Chandler up to Callahan. So it's all looking all right. And then first quarter of that North Melbourne West Coast game, sitting pretty. Jerry's looking good. He's looking like he's on track for 100.
Looked like a great
pick.
The
roll's there, and that's what we look for. The roll's there. And then he goes and puts his ankle under somebody.
Yeah, someone falls on his leg.
So, look, at that point I was quite obviously devastated, but I held some sort of, like happiness in the fact that it looked like, in terms of the role, it actually was a good pick. I hadn't made a bad pick.
It was just bad luck.
Just bad luck with the injury, and then
3.56% owned as well. So I think, when you're on an island over there with a unique, it's a lonely place. Although it seemed like there was a few people out there on Twitter that shared your pain. I think Roy, the trader, is also included in that.
What pissed me off the most was then having to sit back watching English go big, and then the guy who I was unsure about his fucking job security, Chandler, pops out 100 as well.
The guy that you were trying to avoid, he goes ton,
And then
to top it off on Sunday.
Well, Sunday I was thinking, God, I'm back in business here. Josh Kelly's scoring well. The role's there. We've picked a somewhat unique player. He's going really well. And then he goes and headbutts Riley O'Brien. And
I think Riley O'Brien headbutts him and knocks him out. And
it was whatever the fuck it was. It wasn't pretty for me. I was pissed off.
Oh, mate, why do we play this game, right? It's it can be brutal. It can be brutal. So
I had a look, for context too, I had a look at our teams, and really there's a couple of differences, but really the only difference on the weekend between our teams was kind of the rucks. And that's the difference between 29,000 rank and I think 4,000 rank.
Yeah.
So in the first round, it's a shocker, but I got to hike the comeback trail now. So
that's it,
put
mate.
it all behind me.
Let's think about it this way. You've got extra trades more than we've ever had before. You've got an extra round this year. You've got an extra bye round this year as well. So if you're ever going to make a big comeback, this is the year to do it. So and I would say that to everyone else out there. Like, say you had a shocker like Luke, and through no fault of your own, man. Like, Josh Kelly looked like he was a great pick. Tristan Jerry looked like he was a great pick. Those of you who had Tom Stewart out there as well. A few fantasy relevant bullets out there in round one. Don't worry, keep your head up. It's a long season. We will get you through this, guys. Don't worry. It'll all come out in the wash later. And I know, because I've dodged some bullets. I'm by no means, thinking that I'm invincible. Like, it's one round of footy. Let's sort of wait and see what everything else.
I mean, if it was easy, it wouldn't be enjoyable.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. So we'll rise from the ashes and get you going.
We push on.
So today's podcast, we're going to be going through some of the all of the games. Now, we've already gone through the Thursday night game, Collingwood and Carlton and Richmond.
Yep.
So if you haven't already checked that one out, go and check out our most previous podcast or video over there. And before we get started, guys, if you're watching over on YouTube, let us know what you think about the setup here. Let us know what you think about the new
foliage,
new digs, new foliage, and setup. And,
we're trying to do some
footage. So hopefully the camera quality and the video quality is nice and crisp.
Well, we'll see how we go.
We'll see. Fingers crossed. Try to live up to that.
Knowing us, it could go to shit straight away.
But let's get stuck into these games, starting with Collingwood and the reigning premiers in Geelong. Let's start off with the Collingwood side. Your boy, who was your first picked player in AFL Fantasy this year. Nick Dacos, I think, is the biggest talking point here, going for 114, 35 disposals, 7 marks, 14 handballs, 21 kicks. So a nice 2-to-1 kick-to-handball ratio there. Yeah. He looked like an absolute jet, running free throughout the game as well.
Yeah, so he's a gun, and neither of us have ever denied the fact that he's a gun. I think what we ended up doing was fading him based on his early draw. And I think if you want to get on Dacos, then, if you didn't have him and you want to get on him, I wouldn't begrudge you doing that for sure. But also consider the fact that Geelong effectively let him run around by himself for the whole game and then ended up losing that game. So, to me, I'm staying firm. I really don't have a choice because I use my trades elsewhere. But I'm staying firm on that one because I don't think that that teams are going to let him do that to them. Especially
the team that he's got in round 2. So he comes up against Port Adelaide, who, if they can hold Josh Dunkley to a 70 score, I think they're going to be a little bit more accountable on a player like Dacos. Last year, they were, I think, the hardest team to score against for defenders. And again, it's only been one game sample size. Might be different this year, but so far, this year supports last year's data as well. Very restrictive team. Dacos could come out and prove us wrong again. Like, I'm not ruling that out, and I definitely, as down as I was compared to consensus prior to the preseason game, like, I still was considering him. Like, he was still very much a possibility to make my side. He's in my super coach team. I do think he's a really good player, and he's definitely a gun. So he's not the worst guy to jump on. I think that, say you've got a Tom Stewart, then a Nick Dacos isn't the worst guy.
I had him in my draft team, so
go down
it just gets better.
Yeah, there you go. You copped it from all angles, draft, everything. Let me just actually check. Is Stewart 775 and Dacos is now actually 788? So you actually have to find a bit of money to go up to Dacos now.
The irony.
Which does suck. So unfortunate there. But I still think that is an okay sort of sideways move to do. And maybe another guy that we'll talk about a little bit later as an option to fix that up. So I think that's still a play, especially if you have one of those injured players. But I don't know if it's one that you maybe, say you had McGrath or something like that. It might feel a little bit sidewaysy to go McGrath to him at this stage, especially with the tough opponent coming up.
With those kind of trades, just maybe give it a second week. Like, everyone comes out, they make their preseason predictions, and then round 1 happens and goes, oh, everyone was wrong about Dacos. Oh, everyone was this about this. And you go like, well, hang on a second. Played one game. So everyone, cool the jets a little bit. It takes more than one game to...
We talked about this during the game as well. Had 35 disposals, had 7 marks, 0 tackles. He had 114. It's a good score, but it's not 130. It's not 140. Like, is this almost... Now, maybe I expect him to have a couple more tackles, so maybe his ceiling is more that, 120 zone. I don't know if we're going to see that, 140 ceiling from a player like Dacos necessarily, which maybe some of those other premium other premium defenders like a Dawson and a Sinclair and a Doherty have. So, to me, I don't know. You can kind of look at this 2 different ways.
Yeah, I slightly disagree. I think he does have a ceiling, but for me, it all depends what the other team decides to do. With how thirsty he is for the ball, if the team lets him run around looking for the ball, the other team, he could score 140. But we just don't expect teams to get beaten by what they know. Yeah,
I expected Geelong to put a bit more pressure on him, but obviously they didn't do that. And they'll be reevaluating that.
will
Let's
be.
touch on a couple other guys a little bit quicker on this game. Jordan De Goey scored 113 points, 25 disposals, 8 marks, 2 tackles. I think he also kicked 3 goals in this game as well.
Yeah.
Anything for us to get excited about at Jordan De Goey? I know some people went him. He's
Good
fairly
on
unique, but I personally don't think this is someone that we need to jump on.
No, I think that's the kind of thing that I want to see 2 or 3 times to then go, yeah, that's a pattern there.
Yeah.
Because he's always capable of scoring big.
And it's not a role change in my eyes. Like, he was big. I think he was the number 1 CBA guy last year. I think he was high in the CBAs on this game as well.
If he doesn't, let's say he doesn't kick those 3 goals, so he's kicking a goal, that's 9 points. Take away, that? 9, 18, so 27 points.
80. 90.
And then nobody's talking about it, are they?
Yeah, so I think that's something that I wouldn't... If you've got him, obviously keep him in your team, but I wouldn't necessarily be looking to trade him in, even though he is a little bit cheaper. Tom Mitchell is someone that I think the alarm bells were ringing in the preseason, and so far, at least, they've rung true. 84 points, plus the fact that he also kicked 2 goals. Just, and there was some good moments. He did some good things in that game. It was very instrumental in their win, but... I don't think he's going to come through with the AFL Fantasy stats for us. So, I just don't think that... Yeah, if you have him on your team, I think he is a kind of a guy that I think might be a priority trade out as soon as you could and jump on one of those guys that do... Well,
I think Tom Green's around that price if you wanted to go there. We'll talk about him a bit more later.
I'd be ticking off that move.
Yep.
Anyone else that you wanted to have a touch on? I do want to have a touch on the Geelong side, Tanner Bruhn.
So Tanner Bruhn was an interesting one because at halftime it was looking like a really, really good pick. And then
he had 45 at half.
Yeah, and there was some time on ground issues there, weren't there? And all throughout the preseason we spoke about it and other people spoke about it as well. Geelong just seemed like a hard team to trust in terms of what they consistently do, not even game to game, but within the game. And that was kind of, I think, shown in Tanner Bruhn. He started really strong, and it looked like he was getting the job done for them. And then for some reason he came off, and it almost coincided with Collingwood then turning that game around. So that was an interesting one.
Jack Bowes maybe coming back to this team. I'm not sure when. Duncan's coming back to this team as well. So
if I was on him, I'd be looking to trade him to someone else who seemingly popped potentially.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. I think he might be a little bit lower down the priority list depending on how many fires you've got to put out and how many rookies you might have missed. But if you're in a really luxurious position, he might be someone that if you can move him to someone else in your team, whether that be through a bit of DPP in the midfield or in the forward line, then I think that is an okay move. Like, say you could get him to like a Warpool or one of those guys that did pop in the first round, I would definitely tick that off. But there is still a world that he comes out in as a good pick, and if he gets the role they had in that first half, it works out. I personally just don't necessarily trust Geelong, but if you picked him, you disagree with me in the beginning anyway. So
that's true.
You might be right, I may be right. There was a scenario where I nearly went... and this is the bullets and the sliding doors moments just before when we were talking about.
You're not going to rub it in, are you?
I will a little bit, so cover your ears, mate. But I had Jarrett Witts in my ruck there, and I was toying up the idea of going him down to a Tristan Jerry, getting a basement rookie like.
Is that's right before you told me to do that, or?
Yeah, well, you had
I'm throwing you under the bus now.
You had more rookies than I did, so you had 7, I had 6. I was trying to get to 5 rookies on field.
Yep.
And I was going to get Bruhn on for, I think it was like a Noah Long. And to do that, I would also have to go a Jack Steele down to a Josh Kelly as well. So I would have brought in the 2 guys that you had, but don't have either of them now. So
it's all right.
It is just a game. Yeah,
I think it made it easier for me to stomach that they looked like good picks.
Yeah.
If they came out and just stunk it up and then got injured, I might not have showed up today.
At least you could proudly say that they look like they were going to do what you wanted.
We've spent all this money on a fern, and I wasn't even going to show up. So,
all right, let's move on to the next game, which was the dreaded Jerry game, which is the North Melbourne versus West Coast
but
Eagles.
Some good things I thought to come out of it.
Some good things, including our boy. We'll share on this one.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I need that win.
LDU, Luke Davies-Uniacke. He looks like a great player. I think you mentioned this one of the few times you've actually watched him play over in North Melbourne.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't he look good?
Yeah, and you definitely opened my eyes to that one a little bit because I didn't watch a lot of North Melbourne, I'll admit, last year. But he does. He looks like everything that you want in a fantasy player, high CBAs, high time on ground. And even though he didn't go monstrous in this game, I think it was a 106, 108.
108,
I think everything that we saw sort of exhibited to us that he's in that role. I think...
Like 12 kicks, 20 handballs, perhaps that might even up a bit. Only one mark in that game. He's definitely had lots of games where he's exceeded that as well.
So for me, that tells me if he's popped out of 108, there's room to go up from there.
There is, in my opinion, yeah.
It's not like he's got an even distribution of stats and he's only hit a 108.
That's right, 87%. He was the main guy in the middle there.
Yeah.
So for those of you guys who have him in your team, I think he's a great pick. I was in on him in the preseason. Everything I saw ticked all those boxes. I think that if you do have someone like Josh Kelly and don't have an LDU,
You could
I still personally think I would trade an LDU in over a Tom Green as an example.
Well, this is the thing with Green is in my mind, I don't want to admit defeat straight away because we saw this at the start of last year.
Yes.
And he over the course of the season, he kind of ended up having, I won't call it a mediocre season, but it wasn't what we expected. And the other thing too is
the role was a bit more all over the shop, which we expect to be a bit better this year.
Exactly. We've been pretty public in saying that our concern for him is the marks, and people will say to us, "Hey, he had his marks, Luke and Mitch. You don't know your ass from your elbow."
I'm definitely rethinking my thoughts on him. Yeah.
You definitely have to, I think, but also one game can prove whatever you want it to prove. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so you can look at it from a different lens.
I can go back one game and show you a game he had 0 marks.
Yeah.
Okay, you show me a game he's got 6 marks. Maybe next week I'll show you another game where he's got 0. I think, I don't want to poo-poo anyone, and there's every chance that he's a season-winning pick, and if you're on him and that's good, I hope you go really well. But I'm still somewhat skeptical.
Yeah. We'll talk a bit more as we've got time to refresh and about our trade targets and sort of what they are in terms of priorities. But I guess straight off the top, number one priority, if you don't have this man, Harry Sheezel, he is the absolute number one must-have player in your AFL fantasy side. 118. I think, if I just look at my team, I think he might have been maybe second highest scorer.
It's pretty good.
Tied second highest. Oh, sorry. Tied third highest with a Hayden Young on my side. So 118 from your debut. Played on the halfback role. Oh,
my goodness.
And we won't mention the fact that I dropped him before the game to get a Sammy Draper on my draft team after I found out that Bruce was not named in the side. Just shambles over in the draft.
Sucks.
But Harry Sheezel, 34 disposals, 22 kicks, 9 marks. Didn't even get a tackle. Didn't need him. 631 metres gained, 86% time on ground. I think the coach has already come out and said that he'll play that same role next week at least.
Oh, you'd have to. You'd be silly not to.
Crazy to move him back to the forward line after that. So
he's not. Don't get it twisted. I don't think he's as good as Dacos, but he looked a bit like Dacos.
He looked Dacos-ish, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So
he gave me like Dacos, Nick Martin vibes.
People might comment, he's played one game, I get it, but just in terms of like the way he moved and the way he went about it.
He looked composed and like clean.
Yeah, he did.
I really liked what I saw. I liked Harry Sheezel.
Very impressive.
He is an absolute. If you don't have him,
get him in.
Make sure he's your number one priority. Yep. The other rookie on this game as well, Ruben Jimby. Again, probably number 2 priority if you don't have him. We should all have these guys in our side. They are the absolute must-have guys. What did he have? 12 tackles for the young man in 72% time on ground. That could still come up.
It's beast mode, hey?
Yeah, so he's definitely someone we're happy having
built for
on
it too.
Our ground. I want to talk to you about Jack Zeeble. The Z-Bull, as the traders would call him.
The problem is where you can get him.
So
you know what I mean?
He's a forward.
Exactly. So that's
say you had someone like another guy in this game, Tom Powell. Say you had a Tanner Bruin. Are you maybe trying to swing them to a player like Jack Zeeble, who I think is just a little bit more expensive in the 500k? Let me just have a look.
The role looked very friendly, but
572. He made 35k in that game, and his break-even is now down at 36. So he's going to continue to make more money.
Yeah.
Are they going to continue to chip it around like they did in that game, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite as friendly as it was for him on the weekend. Like, he took 9 marks, but if he's playing in that particular role, then it does lend itself to higher numbers. I think if I was to make a call on it now and he stays in that role, I'd say with certainty that he's going to outperform what he's priced at. It's just whether you can find something better elsewhere, depending on your team structure as well.
Yeah. Who would you, and again, we're skipping ahead, just... again, we're early in the week at this stage, but who would you rather, him or a Jason Horne-Francis?
Him.
As Zeeble?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might prefer him too.
I think the role is friendlier than what you might have with a Jason Horne-Francis. I know that he sort of popped a little bit on the weekend as well, and I know a few people are on that, but I think in the role that he's playing, there's the potential for... him to go missing in patches in that role. Yep. And the other thing too is
very similarly priced, I will say.
they wiped the floor with the Lions in the end, and their highest scoring fantasy player scored 95. So it's one game. I'm not going to come out and say that that's like a straight up concern, but it's just something to, I guess.
I guess my view is I think that Jack Siebel's performance here is more repeatable than a Jason Horne-Francis.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of putting it.
Week to week. And Horne-Francis, I think, is someone that I still have a bit more of that impact player tag on him there as well.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to touch on from this player? Let's talk about Tristan Xerri. What are your plans for Tristan Xerri, and what do you think other people who have the unfortunate circumstance that you have, what do you think they should be looking at and what to do with him?
Yeah, we always said from the start that if you did choose to go for a mid-price option and something went wrong, you cooked yourself a little bit. And I mean, I was saying that the whole preseason. I ended up doing it. So some people go, oh, you knew what you were getting into, but you don't pick an injury like that, I don't think.
You can't pick a bloke just falling on his leg one quarter into the season.
You know, at the moment, I suck it up, but at this point, it's now time to cough up.
It's a bit of a restructure.
Yeah, so depending on what you might have done with the rolling lockout on the weekend, it sort of depends on how much cash you might have to make with that second trade. So I was actually pretty fortunate in the end. I chose to go, after that happened, I chose to go Dawson down to Hayden Young, which actually ended up scoring me points on the weekend, but also made me a heap of cash to now use on that Xerri thing. So I'm going to have to fix Kelly and Xerri, which means Kelly will come down to one of those guys that popped. It could even be a Tom Green. It could be, who am I thinking of? I can't think of the name. Just dropping down a slight price bracket, and then I'll be going straight from Xerri up to...
You've already got a bit of bank of cash
I do. I do have a little bit of cash, and so I'll be going no mucking around, either straight to English or, potentially Witsy's going to have a low break even now. He could continue to climb the ranks there. So
I also think Sean Darcy's a good shout as well. He scored a ton against a very strong opposition in Rowan Marshall. I was very much considering... Wits and a Sean Darcy in my starting squad. I had the 50k kind of left there. I don't know. There's something dirty about just having 50k sitting on your bank. So I just wanted to spend it. I knew you had a good matchup, and I also had that bye round as sort of a bit of a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So I think that lent me that way. Look, it's very early. Obviously, Wits had a great game, but I think that next week we could just as easily see Sean Darcy be the one going big and Wits dropping back. So
Luke Jackson didn't have much of the role at all on the weekend, which I found interesting.
Yeah, it was very much like 75-25 split.
See, that's
between
weird.
The two players.
Do you think that's weird? He's been traded across there. I'm assuming he's going home, I think, but I'm assuming also for more ruck opportunity.
I think the pitch with him was like that Blitzarves kind of
was
role.
it? Okay.
Where they see him more
just
as
run
that
around.
sort of like rover sort of type, very versatile wing, forward, midfield, ruck. He's quite young still, but then again, so is Sean Darcy. But I think from what I've seen so far, I'd be confident enough going up to a Sean Darcy if, for example, you can't get up to a Jared Witts or a Tim English as well. So I would probably tick all three of those options off. Any cheaper options that you think are worthwhile considering, whether it be a Laddams or someone like Scott Lysette now that he's over the Brisbane matchup?
Mate, it would not be wise, would it?
I feel like...
I don't think anyone would advise me to just go for more heartache.
Yeah, look, I personally do agree that you should probably
Look,
try
I'm
and
sweating
get
just thinking about mentioning those names. My God.
Yeah, it makes you nervous. So, I mean, look, not to say those other guys are the most, likely to stay injury-free, especially with English and Sean Darcy's history as well. So
you can't be picking your team based on unlikely injuries. Like if you're picking Aaron Hall and he gets injured, then you're probably entitled to cop a bit of "I told you so." But not with guys who don't have that history.
Yeah. So I think get up to one of those three. I think is probably the ones that we're looking at, and it might require a bit of a restructure for you to do so. But let's move on to the next game which was you got the next game.
Yeah, Port and the Lions.
This one will be a bit of a quick one. So we've talked about Jason Horne-Francis straight off the bat. Looked like he had a really good game. Came in waves, I think, from memory. Sort of kicked the first goal, then went on a dry spell for a little bit, and then came on really strong at the end of the first or start of the second quarter. Had a big third quarter as well. So this is the kind of flow of the game that makes me a little bit worried for Jason Horne-Francis.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a player like him? And because he's in a fair amount of sides. I think he's like 15 or 16% owned.
And to be fair, those sides
18%.
have been those sides have been proved right on the weekend, haven't they? In
Absolutely.
terms of where
It's
he's
looked good
priced. So well done to those people who picked it. Like I said, I mentioned it before, and you just touched on it then as well. Is I think in that role there's the potential to have those big spurts, but then there could also be some dry spells there. The other thing, the reason maybe I'm not quite as interested is because I just don't feel like I can make a structure. Make my structure work to get him in the side, particularly when I've got a lot of shit to fix up as well in the coming days.
Yeah. So he's what is he priced at $5.72? So he's pretty close to that sort of mid 60s in price stat figures, mid to high 60s. So what do we expect him to do from here on out? Like, what did he have on the weekend? He had, was it a 90 on the weekend?
Yeah, it was 92 or something like that, I think.
Do you have it in front of you? I'm struggling to find it.
I do have it in front of me. It was bang on the 90.
Bang on the 90. Okay. Yeah. So, what do we expect that to be? Like, I kind of feel like he's a low to mid 80s is sort of my projection there. Where would you peg him at?
Yeah, for me, it almost, I know it's not, but it feels a bit like his rookie season. He could conceivably, I think, go 90, but I think it's more likely to be 80s.
Yeah.
And I mean, that still probably makes him a good pick, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. If it's 85, it's 20 points under still that what you're paying at the moment. So
the question is, like, how many of these guys can you fit in? Because we're about, in the next sort of half an hour, we're about to talk about a heap of guys that are sort of priced either in that range or below who, based on week one, we are expecting them to outperform their average. So how, are you going to be able to pick them all? Can you win without picking them all?
Yeah. Can you just read me out his stat line there? Like, what did he have in terms of disposals, marks,
so
goals?
one goal, 25 touches, 17 kicks, 8 handballs, 2 marks, and 3 tackles. So it's a pretty, like, diverse line. He found a lot of the pills. So, there's definitely...
He's had games like this before. Like, I'm looking at a game last year, round 4 against the Swans, 23 disposals, 4 marks, 5 tackles, 16 kicks, 7 handballs. Like, it's pretty similar, 94 points. He followed it up the next week with a 56. And then a 67, 52. So I still, for me personally, would want to see this happen more consistently. I don't know if I'm ready to launch into it straight away as a guy that I'm moving across or jumping ship if one of my mid-prices have failed.
Yeah.
I definitely prefer what I saw from him and his role than someone like a Tanner Bruhn and someone like a Tom Powell.
Yeah.
But, of course, there is that price difference.
Yeah.
So
we're not pooh-poohing him as a pick, but it just takes a lot to be a trade target, doesn't it?
For me personally, I haven't quite seen enough, but it wouldn't shock me if he comes out and has a big season. So, and a lot of people are on him as well. So we'll just sort of have to see how that goes. Rosie went really, really well.
Yep, tick.
So that's obviously a big tick. The role was excellent. Let's talk about
Josh Dunkley.
Yeah, Dunkley.
I think everyone should trade him out. What do you think?
Yeah, let's trade him out.
Get rid of him.
Get him out.
Don't. Yeah. Look, there's no need.
He's going to average 70.
Don't hold. I'd be trading him out if I were you.
Well, actually, I want to talk to you about. We were sort of on the not captaining Dunkley early.
You said it on Casey's captains.
We advised people. I mean, he was on the list, but he was down the list. He was down the list. I think he was like 6 or 7.
Yeah,
or
you
something
can't
like that.
not put him on the list.
Behind Doherty, behind Bailey Smith, behind Clayton
And
Oliver.
why did you do it, Mitch?
Well, Port, they were the hardest team to score against last year. Again, we're going into it. It's in Port Adelaide. Look, Josh Dunkley is a gun, and he will definitely bounce back.
Agreed.
In fact, not to jump too far ahead, he will pretty high on my captain's list so far, and I think for my team in particular, he might be wearing the VC going into the round.
Just to clarify, don't actually trade him.
No, don't trade him. I would be.
We were being
him.
sarcastic.
But obviously, if you were one of the very few teams out there that didn't start with the Josh Dunkley, this is perfect for you. He's going to drop in price. He does have a big ceiling, so maybe he could reach his break even, which is a very lofty 140, but he could easily reach that this round. But I'm not worried about him. I think he's, from memory, his handball to kick ratio was well down. Didn't take any marks from memory as well. That's not going to be the norm moving forward. The role was a tick.
3 kicks, 16 handballs.
Yeah.
Christ.
You're not going to see that very often. He tackled still.
9 tackles, but no marks.
But no marks. That's going to adjust as we go off. So I'm not worried about Josh Dunkley. It's a shit score, but...
You don't trade a premium like that for that.
No, he's still clearly, to me, going to be number 1. Maybe Timmy Taranto might be able to make a push, but... no, I don't think that you really have to be worried about that one at all.
Yep.
Who else do we need to talk about?
We could just
here?
briefly mention Darcy Wilmot as sort of a D. I still see him as a D7 or D8 option, still on your bench. I wouldn't see him as bringing him onto your field.
So yeah, this is an issue that I'm facing with my team. That D6 position.
So you kind of got Chesser, Cowan.
You got Chesser, Cowan, Wilmot there as sort of your rookie price options. Are we comfortable with any of them on our field at the moment, or is this kind of a situation where we need to restructure our side to try and maybe get another mid-price defender in there at some point?
Depends who you don't have. I'll say it straight away. I'm not going to be able to do that. I don't have the luxury of doing that. But if, let's say you didn't have a Constable, or you didn't have a Day, find a way potentially.
I think Constable is someone that while he's there, we have to have him. The chances are, though, I think he had like 42% as his kicking efficiency or disposal efficiency.
It's pretty stinky for a guy who's got a high kick to handball ratio as well.
Yeah, so I'm a little concerned about how long we're going to have him there, but 87 from a guy who's priced around 300k it's a great score. So he and Will Day, I think, was also someone that so they're achievable in terms of getting those guys in at a cheaper price.
Your hand might be forced here. Like I don't think I'd be going to trade Wilmot of those three, but let's say
if he scores
Cowan,
49 against Port Adelaide, like, is that encouraging that he's someone that maybe against a maybe easy team to score against? Melbourne have been someone that gives up points to defenders and those sort of outside players a bit.
He's a rookie as well. 49, it's like if it has a 5 in front of it, you're probably going like, that's pretty good. I think your hand could be forced in this situation if Cowan gets dropped.
Yeah.
He got subbed, so, read into that what you will.
Well, if Cowan gets dropped, what we could do is loop a player like Darcy Wilmot. Because
he scores.
I think they play on the Friday night and then you can sort of decide whether or not you're going to take that or go somewhere else.
That's a play. That's even a play with Kelly, I think, this week. In terms of
although actually no,
Kelly,
I think now that I just thought of that, I'm pretty sure Carlton play on the Thursday night. So
okay, so you can't do
so you wouldn't be able to do that. It would only happen if Chesser was dropped, and then you could maybe loop Cowan if that was the case.
Okay, which you might not even want to do it anyway.
Yeah, so we'll have to sort of see how that goes. But that D6 is something that I'm going to be thinking about before our podcast later in the week, and whether it's something that if you didn't have too much carnage, if it's something to look at fixing up.
Should we move on to the next game? I think we're going to run out of time. So.
Yeah, let's keep going.
So we've got Doggies in Melbourne next. Now, you were just licking your lips to sit down and watch this one. And I had a prior commitment I couldn't watch, which I was a bit PO'd about.
So we've made some big calls in the preseason, Luke. We've been pretty hot on a couple of dogs.
Don't
be jumping off now.
Yeah.
But Bailey Smith was obviously a guy that I was very keen to sit down and watch. And there's a couple of different ways you can look at this. The glass half full in me says that I didn't like the way he was moving. He looks more fatigued than I've seen him in the past. He looks like he wasn't running as smooth and quickly and as powerfully as I've seen him in the past. Yet he still found his way in a game where they got beaten down pretty badly in the second half to a 96.
Yep.
So glass half full of me says that, okay, he gets a couple of matches underneath him.
Yep.
The team actually does it a bit better in the coming weeks, that he's going to be able to put 20 plus points on those kind of scores.
Yeah.
The glass half empty in me is, okay, there's talk about like interrupted preseason, which I know we pushed back a bit on in the start of the year, but is this something that is, I think his CBAs were down at 58%, but I do want to mention that I think that sometimes those CBA figures can be a bit misleading, because sometimes just based on the game flow, if the Dogs or the Demons kick 3 goals in a row, no time's gone off the clock, but you're going to clock 3 CBAs. So
exactly,
they can sometimes be a bit misleading. I feel like it was a pretty even spread amongst their midfielders, which is kind of what we expected from the preseason. Yeah,
and I think the Dogs' midfield fluctuates a little bit with its performance, doesn't it? It feels like a little bit of a front-running midfield. So there's going to be teams that they get beat up by. Who
expected Adam Treloar to be the top scoring Dog? I know Dossie messaged me, went, oh yeah, of course, Adam Treloar. Why not have him as the highest scoring Dog? So obvious, 76%, sure.
But put it this way, if you did get on the Bailey Smith train, I don't think you're getting off it.
I'm not moving it.
There's better
you don't trade your premiums; they're not the priority right now.
Yeah, better things
we do want to watch players like that, especially because they are a bit more unique. So maybe in the next few weeks, if we get on top of all the rookies, we get on top of all the mid prices. and we have the luxury to trade one of those guys if he is underperforming.
Yep.
We can definitely do that, but not as of yet. I'm definitely giving him another week or two.
I think the logic that we just spoke about kind of applies for Bontempelli, McRae. They're all reasonably similar in score. Like McRae's a little bit higher, but he kicked a goal there.
Yep.
So I don't think that you're pulling the pin on any of those guys now. I think there's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, and the good thing about Bont is like he scored 99. I think he's priced at 100. So he's basically gave you
good.
what you paid for.
No problems.
So I think
Move on.
And he went off to a flyer, but kind of just faded at the end of that game when they started getting on top of him.
What was your read on the Gawn roll? Because he's come out and he's scored 113.
Yeah,
so
he looks bloody good, man.
It's ridiculous, hey?
I think, again, you'd have the CBAs in front of you, but I think that he and Grundy were pretty even, but I think I saw somewhere that Grundy played more forward time and Gawn played a bit more of that floating across the back line time.
Yeah, Grundy actually got more CBAs,
Grundy
so
got more
16-13.
Yeah, so I think I remember seeing something like 60% forward time for Grundy, or I'm probably butchering the stat, but he was definitely playing more forward than Gawn was.
Yeah.
Gawn still managed to kick 2 goals though, but he's just a great player. So again, it wouldn't shock me if he comes out and he's the highest averaging ruckman this year. We weren't paying for that in the preseason because he was the most expensive, but again, it wouldn't shock me if at some point we need to get Gawn into our side and it's just his talent shines through.
I still feel like if you are like me and having to fix up a ruck situation...
Oh, you're not going to Gawn.
Yeah, I don't think so. But get this as well. So Grundy's 69% time on ground compared to Gawn's 87% time on ground.
Yeah.
So it shows me that probably Gawn, in Melbourne's eyes, has more strings to his bow. So when he's not purely in the ruck, he'll do a different role, which helps his scoring.
What about on the other side of the ruck line, Tim English? How did you see? I mean, again,
I missed the game. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to.
He looked good, man. Like he did his best to go against these two.
When you're going against these two and you pop out at 115, you must have done something, all right.
Yeah. So I look, if he stays out on the ground, he has every chance to be the highest scoring ruckman this season as well. So I think you've got a 3-headed race between English, Gawn, and Rowan Marshall to get there as the number 1 scoring ruck. Like English, he just does everything so well. They use him in the patches of play. They look for him in linking play, kicking the ball. He gets marks. He gets disposals. He still tackles. He still gets hit outs. So look, I think if you've got him, obviously you keep him hold of him, and a lot of us will probably be looking to get him in at some point. Yeah. For those, I guess it's just sort of picking your moment when you do so.
In terms of Mr. Chandler. My nemesis now.
Cade Chandler.
Yeah.
Popped out at, 104. And he looked good. He looked really good,
It sucks, man. When I was sitting there at dinner just watching those scores go up, my mood just deteriorated every time he scored a point. Hey,
7 tackles, 8 marks. He was working up the ground like a madman. Kicked a goal, 2 behinds. So he could have been bigger. There was some easier goals that he probably should have kicked. That his
could have been worse.
Score could have been bigger, to be honest. I think he's a huge priority for a lot of teams to get in.
Yeah, he definitely is. And the fact of the matter is he's not going to pop that out every week. But the
he doesn't
way
need to anymore now.
Exactly. That's the way the pricing works, is that when he has that big score, his break-even dives, it'll be negative ridiculous.
So he's negative 27 at the moment in terms of his break-even.
So he just has to front up to score to
if he goes something like 60 across the next 3 weeks, what's he scored? 104. I'm just using Moreira's Magic's little price calculator here.
It's going to be ridiculous.
He goes 60 for the next 2 weeks, and he makes an extra $110,000 in 2 weeks. So
I think he'll be the most priority rookie for most people, because I'm assuming that most people already have
he's
Sheezel or have
He's only in
Jimby.
10% of sides, so he was someone that a lot of people did miss. So
it's going to really hurt me to not be able to get him this week. So I'm going to have to do Kelly and Jerry, and I'm not going to do something ridiculous and go Kelly.
He still might even be worthwhile getting next week, depending on how he goes.
Yeah.
But he's someone that should easily get himself to 400k plus.
Yeah.
And so with his price tag at number 260, you're still making a lot of money by getting him in now. So I think of the guys that I'm expecting a lot of people to not have, he, to me, if again, assuming you don't have Jinby, assuming you have Jimby and Sheezel, those other guys that like Sheezel that you should have started with, Cade Chandler I think is probably the number 1 priority to jump on. Get those rookies right, get the cash going, which is the number 1 thing to think about at the start of the season.
Yep.
Anyone else we need to talk about this year? Jack McRae.
We just kind of lumped him in with Bont and
he kind of did all right.
Yeah, but I think he's the same one. You wait, you watch, you don't trade.
You just sort of there's not much to do there. So all right, let's move on to the next game.
Sydney.
Sun City. This is
Now, you were just creaming your jeans, weren't you, watching this one?
Yeah, I knew he had a good matchup, but I wasn't necessarily expecting this kind of a ceiling from a Jared Witts. But 137, I think he might have been the second or third highest score of the round.
If you were to graph like my mood and Mitch's mood, it's like I'm like when you're like shooting for the stars, and I'm like,
I was trying not to let it get too much to my head, but I did.
And you're probably like texting me going, "Oh, I'm really sorry, mate," but you sneakily
I let one little text go. Oh, I was pretty happy with my ruck choice.
yeah, and I got on here for it.
130. I think I outscored your R2 by over 100 points.
Yeah, and it was effective. Oh, I was going to say it was effective with the difference between our scores, but I think you had a bit more.
A little bit. But yeah, I think it's a good pick, obviously, to start the season. It's it's a way you want to keep going, but obviously coming up against that Sydney team where they had a few ruck injuries going on there. I think Laddams even got subbed out. The
Witts is scoring well. They just go, no, have some more points.
Have some more, yeah. So I think obviously temper your expectations, but I do think he's someone that can push mid-90s for the season.
Yeah, like 300 hit-outs or something, didn't he?
Yeah, what did he have?
51. It's close enough to 300.
51 hit-outs. But I was most encouraged by the disposals, actually. 25 disposals.
Yeah, that's good.
He had 5 marks. He is someone that does get a lot of his points from hit-outs, but the fact that he also had a decent amount of disposals in there as well encourages me a little bit as well. 87% time on ground.
He almost had more hit-outs than Rory Laird had points.
That's true.
It's getting pretty close. Within, I think it's 9.
We'll touch on him later and have a bit more of a victory lap with that.
Victory lap. I'll get the streamers.
Again, you're looking at getting Cherry up to someone. If you had to pick between he and a Sean Darcy, who are you going?
And I can't pick English. It's
okay. Throw English in there. Like, what are you thinking?
For me, I think
of your upgrade at this stage.
It's probably Witts or English. I think the priority would definitely be English, but then that huge score from Witts jumps out at you. However, if you look at the matchup, you go, well, English scored against Gawn and Grundy at 115, and then Witts did it against no ruckman. So maybe that leans me towards English. However, I think there is still a little bit of a price difference there as well. Yeah,
so English is over the 900. So let me just double check. He's 909. Yeah. Jared Witts is now at 834. And Sean Darcy is still down at 770. He comes up against North.
My days.
So old man Goldstein you'd expect to be back in there. And then he goes up against Eagles. So again, that's another easy matchup.
Wow.
So I think that if I was to rank them in terms of trade priority, just for value for dollars, I would actually have Sean Darcy number 1.
But for me, that after the absolute debacle of the weekend, for me that feels like I'm getting cute. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But do you know what I mean? It's such a debacle that I almost just want to put an end to it and go. I'm getting whoever everyone else has, and I'm just if he goes down.
I feel like then you put yourself at like. Because again,
I can't bridge the gap. Is that what you mean?
Well, you can't bridge the gap, and also we can't necessarily predict injuries. We're not going to say here and go, okay, English is going to be fine because he's the most expensive, and Sean Darcy is the most likely to get injured because he's the cheapest.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but it's easy to say from that side of the desk.
I know. Yeah, I've got no emotion attached to it right now, but. If I was, again, for my listeners who maybe aren't, or probably are quite as scarred as Luke, if you've got the Cherry situation, I would go Sean Darcy number 1 personally. I'd probably have English number 2 and Witts third, just because that gap is now smaller between Witts and English because of the big score of a Witts. Remember, guys, and this is... We probably hear this a lot every year. When you trade a player in, you're not getting the score that they put up the last week. That doesn't count to your average.
You're telling me that doesn't count?
No, you don't get that score. Did you not know that?
No, I thought you banked that one.
Oh, yeah, no.
This is bullshit.
Turns out you only get what they score from when you trade them in. Then
that's shit. I didn't read that in T's and C's.
Yeah, fine print, mate. You got to go digging for that one. But yes, so what they score from here forward, you missed out on that 137. So for me, I actually think...
Just say it one more time that I missed out on it.
You did miss out on that 137. Yeah, I beat you by 100 points
you
plus.
Freak.
What do we got? Goulden. We got to talk about that boy, Errol.
Yeah, and anyone who was saying, he's not going to come out and score 180 every week. Yeah, we get that.
Shit,
we know, but the
99
role
still, I'm happy with that.
Absolutely. And we also came out and said quite publicly too. We don't expect him to have 70% CBAs every week. So 50% for us was enough to suggest that the role was there and that he would outperform what he was priced at. And the other interesting thing too was that he actually had more CBAs than I think Callum Mills, and there was another notable.
Yeah,
maybe
Callum Mills.
It wasn't Parker.
It was Rowbottom.
Rowbottom. So interesting there. I think Sydney have tweaked a few things
Yeah,
potentially.
so I think it was Luke Parker way out in front
Yep.
as the number one midfielder in terms of CBAs, and then it was Goulden and Chad Warner sort of second rung there. I think Rowbottom wasn't far behind, and then sort of your Mills was a little bit further back. So
Yep.
concerning signs for Callum Mills, and if you did jump on him as a bit of a unique, he might be a kind of a player that I would say maybe you might want to jump off just because the role is concerning. He still has enough value on his head that you'll be able to get something decent for it. It might be enough to get a bit of a restructure. So that one to me is not necessarily on the back of a poor performance, but on a role flag that I am concerned about, which I was a little bit concerned about in the preseason, which is why he wasn't really an option for me. But if you've got most of the rookies, say for example, and your mid prices are doing okay, or if it's the cash you need to do a bit of a restructure, then Callum Mills, I think, is maybe your ticket to do that, and I would tick that off, assuming you don't have any other more pressing concerns.
Yeah, and it's not because you're reacting to a score; it's because you're reacting to a role. At this early point in the season, I think that still is a true fact. That
he's got a lot of cash on his head, and you can use that cash well. I think so. He's still 964k. His break even is 138, and if he's still playing on that wing off half back a little bit as well, then I don't see him getting close to what he put up last year.
Yep.
He still is a gun, so and he can fluctuate week to week, but it's not promising signs. Let's move on to the next game on the Sunday. So this was the Giants Adelaide game, if I'm correct. Am I?
You are correct. Yeah. You are correct. Now that there was some positive vibes in the house during this game, and then it went south pretty quick.
So Josh Kelly was looking good. What did he have? I think it was like the last quarter he went down.
Yeah, he did. I think he ended up with 91.
So 91, I think that was early.
He had 89 to 3/4 time, and I'm sitting there thinking, Here we go.
We've got a pod here.
Credibility for the Ball Boys too. I was thinking
absolutely.
He's one of our picks, and he's going to go 120 here. At certain points he was sort of catching Tom Green there in terms of the scoring, and then like I said, he went and had the head knock, and it looked bad straight away, didn't it? It was not one of those ones that you look at and think, oh, just wait and see. Like the legs were moving, and there was carry on. People were running in, and so naturally I stormed out. I slammed the door. The toys went flying out of the cot. That's what fantasy does to us.
Yeah, look, if you've got say you were in the horrible position where you've got Stewart, Cherry, and Kelly, then obviously he's the guy that's going to be returning the soonest. So you fix up those other guys that are longer term injuries. But this time of the year, I think that more than likely it's a trade. If you have someone that you can loop on your midfield, say you've got a Holdens on your bench, you loop him, he goes off for 100 or something crazy. Then you might hold, hoping that it's a 1 week absence, and maybe use that to get some of those other rookie fix-ups. But again, you're sort of waiting and banking on a player like Holdens, who does play the first game of the round, to do that. So that might be something that you're waiting for, but not expecting that to necessarily be the case.
Yeah.
In a case like that, what would you say? Although I think you've got Holdens on the ground, is that right?
Only because, remember, the way it worked out, I actually had to trade Mackenzie. I had Mackenzie, but
okay.
The
so you could then move him onto the bench.
Yeah, so I ended up having Holdens on the ground and Mackenzie sitting on the bench. The way it worked, I couldn't get him on after Thursday.
With that in mind, what if Holdens comes out and scores an 80? Are you keeping Josh Kelly in that situation?
If he scores an 80, I'd almost be tempted to, just because it would maybe allow me to use the trade to potentially get Chandler, and because I'm in that kind of interesting situation. The other thing too is I really like Josh Kelly as a pick. Yeah. I like watching him play.
He looks like a gun.
I liked what we've spoken about him through in the preseason. So
everything you saw would back that up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it would just be generally disheartening to have to trade him out after. I know I'm probably going to be forced to. I get that, but it would kind of suck.
Yeah, it is one of those tough things. I think when we get closer to round 5, round 6, and we're in upgrade season, 1 week injuries, I think we've sort of seen in the past with a player like Cripps, who did his hammy, missed a week, came back, and he was good to go. The right play there was to hold a player like that, so you can get that upgrade. We're in the phase right now with our trading that we're just doing fix-up trades here and there. The rookies haven't made enough cash yet for us to downgrade and use that for an upgrade. Yeah. So typically, if you've got an injury, you're gone. You need those points on the field. You need to fix that up straight away. But I think there is a scenario where if there is a good score on the bench, you're comfortable with taking that and you can get a rookie that you might otherwise miss.
Yeah.
I think there is an option, but it's just picking that line on how much that's worth, which is the tricky thing. So I think maybe if it's an 80, I'm saying that's good enough for me. Yeah. Something below that, I'm a bit sketchy and a bit unsure on.
Yeah, you'd be leaving points on the board, but there's no harm in looking, is there? You know,
so I think just bringing that to everyone's attention, I think is also valuable, and just not locking yourself maybe into something on that first night.
Yep.
So you can have a look at Hollands and then go from there.
Yep.
The other thing that we want to talk about, which we alluded to earlier, the big man, the $1 million man, who is not the only $1 million man anymore, but Rory Laird came out and scored a disgusting 57.
Don't hold back.
He wasn't even tagged, Luke. He wasn't even tagged. Now, I don't know if this was, there was reports about a lot of hot weather down in Sydney or something like that, but the other team seemed to handle it fine. You know, the other guys on the other side of things scored well. So Rory Laird, 57,
I think his break even's like 180, I think.
Yeah, 174 I've got here.
So
he's going to absolutely lose cash. He had 2 tackles, 2 marks, 18 disposals on the weekend. It was only 1 free against, so it wasn't even like that was like hugely, bringing his score down. Just a really poor effort for him. And if you started with him,
it's a lot of money. In some ways, would you agree? In some ways, that sort of performance, could it be even harder to stomach than like what happened to me
absolutely.
with Kelly? Because
absolutely. I mean, you got more points out of Kelly. You spent less money out of Kelly.
And he was proving to be a good pick.
It was proving to be a good pick. It's clear cut. You trade him, you get him out of your side, you move on. Whereas this,
I still don't think you trade Laird. What are your thoughts?
I don't think you trade him either. If you've committed to get him in, I think you stick it out. Because the role's the same. The role is there. He could come out next week and still be the guy. Yeah. Different to a Mills where I thought the role was a bit different. The role is here. You just hope that he comes back. Look, I was always in the camp that you don't get Rory Laird anyway. And I didn't expect it to be this bad. But for us people that didn't start with him, we are now licking our lips.
He's coming to us.
Come round 5, 6, 7. He is going to be at a very, very nice price for us. And we're going to jump on a lot cheaper than those who started him round 1 did have. But if you did start him round 1, I would still, obviously, I'd be holding him. And, he still might bounce back. I wonder what this does for those who did start him in terms of like the confidence in putting a captaincy on him. Like
it's hard to do it after a 60, I'd imagine.
After doing that,
who do they play this next week?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Who do they play?
They have
down the bottom there. I think their last game.
Oh no, that's GWS there.
Oh, sorry.
They got the Tigers.
So you'd think he'd go well against the Tigers.
Yeah, the Tigers aren't tagging him, but no one tagged him this week.
No one's tagged him this week. Where is that game? Out of curiosity, is it in Adelaide?
Yeah,
it's an Adelaide Oval. Surely he bounces back. I think I'd still back him in as a decent captain option.
Yeah.
But yeah, tough start for Laird owners.
I can't see.
I know Bales was very
poor Bales, and even Calvin I think was fuming. I just can't see the cash grab large enough that you'd like feel the need to go Laird down to someone.
He's gonna like the worst thing in the world would be trade him out. Yeah. Trade him to a player like Tom Green, for example. Tom Green, it just flips the other way. Tom Green goes sucky. Rory Laird comes out, drops a 130 on your head. Yeah. And you're sitting there going, what am I doing? And then you've just compounded your issue there.
Exactly, you're back and forth.
Yeah, in my opinion, those kind of guys you definitely hold. It's unfortunate. Yeah. It's put you a step behind from the rest of the comp that didn't start with him. But the reason you have him there is because his ceiling is so big.
Correct.
You just hope that comes in the next round.
Yep, I would agree.
Anyone else that we want to touch on? My boy Dawson in there.
Yeah.
Did okay, 92 points. A little bit under what we'd hoped for, but I think a lot of those Adelaide guys struggled.
That was one good thing.
There wasn't a whole lot of marking or tackling going on in that game. I think a lot of people were. There was a lot of cramping and people struggling with issues there. So I think the heat was affecting a lot of other players.
We kind of vaguely mentioned Tom Green there, but obviously performed really well. We mentioned him at the top of the show. So if people are trading to him, I'm definitely not suggesting that they shouldn't do that. I might even be one of those people.
I think he's probably top 2 targets in terms of like under a discounted premium in your midfield.
Yeah.
Like he and
What's
LDU
his break even now?
Are probably the 2 guys that I'd be looking at. I still think that LDU is the priority over a Tom Green. But obviously, I think Tom Green was one of the best performing midfielders in the round.
Yes.
782k.
Plays the Eagles next week.
Plays the Eagles, break even of 65. So he's still going to make you a bit more money. But again, like you mentioned before, he came out to a hot start last time. The encouraging thing is the marks.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
But there's still a little bit in me that thinks that I don't.
Yeah, put it this way. Would you be surprised if he had 0 marks next week?
I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wouldn't be surprised.
It's like
I have him pegged at like high 90s.
average for the season.
Averaging for the season.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I had him pegged at like a 97, 98 at the start of the season. Maybe now that I've seen that game, he's like a 99, 100.
Okay.
I don't see him going like 105, which you would want him to be a season-long keeper.
Yeah.
But this could, again, me with Patrick Cripps last season.
Yeah.
I buried my head in the sand. Look, eventually I was proven right, but it hurt a lot at the start of the year. So this could be another situation like that for me. I'm not ruling that out.
Yeah.
It's not typically the type of player I like to go for, but it did look good from the few things that we saw. So
It did.
he's popular.
Callahan, should we briefly talk about?
Callahan.
Yes, I thought he performed well. He was the guy that I traded in with Sherry. So had he gone very poorly, then I think I would have been in a bit of strife. And I think he added a couple of mark kicks to his score late, which
he
were really
did. I think
good
he had
to
a
see.
plus 12 in the last minute, a couple of just chipping around. Can I get, if you've got the app there,
Yep.
can you have a look at his final quarter and just double check if he had any CBAs for me in that? So you can sort of go up to the top, go to advanced, and then scroll down and do more.
I'll break it down my quarter here.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the CBAs in this breakdown.
I'm not sure there.
I'll check that for you.
Pass the tools over here, man. I'll get you going. But I just wanted to see if he benefited more from like Kelly leaving, or if it was just the fact that the game was kind of wrapped up at the end there, and he kind of just got a little bit of.
I didn't notice necessarily. I think I actually don't think he had too many CBAs for the whole game, to be perfectly honest. But I don't think he benefited a heap from Kelly leaving. It's not like he then went out and popped a 40-point quarter, I don't think.
Yeah,
That's my
so
understanding of how
I'm
it went.
looking at he had one centre bounce in the final term. He did have a big score from memory in the last
But
quarter.
you remember
He
you
had
add
37 in the last quarter.
But you add 12 to that waxing in the back line. So
25.
Yeah.
So is his score maybe a 71 instead of a 20, instead of an 83?
Yeah, maybe.
A
Maybe
71's
slightly
like
inflated.
just past.
Yeah. Whereas 83 you feel a bit more confident
83 is
with.
a bit better. So I still think that...
It's not one you're fixing, but is it?
No, I don't think you're fixing it, but I just wouldn't be surprised if next week he comes out and it's not as positive.
Yeah.
Maybe with a full game of no Josh Kelly, he does get, and they have a bit more time to game plan, that he does get a bit more time inside. They have talked about him
Got the
getting
Eagles next week.
wing and inside time, so I don't think you're fixing him. I don't necessarily think he's someone you have to jump on, for example, though.
No.
But if you have him, I think you just hold him on.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else we need to talk about in this team here? What about the rookie there, our boy, the cyclist?
Yeah, he played well, hey?
70 points, mate.
Yeah, he
kicked a goal.
Got on his bike for sure.
6 marks. He got up the ground. Is he someone? So if you say you already got a Chandler,
he and Chandler, I didn't expect to do that. Hey?
Yeah.
I didn't see. Obviously hard-working players, but I didn't expect that from round one.
Yeah. So again, you sort of it's going to kickstart his cash generation
For sure.
here. So I wouldn't expect that to keep up. I don't think he's someone that you move onto your field or anything like that because of that.
You get Chandler before him for sure.
Chandler before him, but he also could be someone that I think he does have decent job security.
I would have said better than Chandler prior to,
and that's why I started with him over at Chandler.
Yeah.
So he is someone that if you are looking for a fix-up, if, say, come the team's names, some guys are dropped, he could be a guy that you pivot to.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next game.
Let's
the
do
Hawks
it.
versus Essendon. We've got to talk about the Warpedo.
This was just a high-scoring game overall, wasn't it?
This was a high-scoring game. From memory, and I'm looking at the stats right now, a lot of marks, I want to say.
Plenty of marks. Well, we had 15 marks for Sicily, 14 for Laverde, 11 for McDonald, 10 for Setterfield, 10 for Langford, 9 for Hardwick, 9 for Dylan Moore, 8 for Bramble, 8 for Day, 8 for Ward. Like, it's just obnoxious. 8 for Ridley, 8 for Thatcher.
Yeah, so how much of this can we learn from? I want to talk specifically about James Wolfe because we've been on the train that we've been anti-James.
Yeah,
Wolfe
people
so
will be
far.
coming at us for sure.
So people are probably puffing their chest up, taking their victory laps, and rightfully so. He looked well. Again, I didn't actually watch much of this game. But he's still KO in the AFL. They can't separate the games and not have them overlap yet. Don't know why. Anyway, just a little pet peeve.
Did you want to watch this game?
I did want to watch this game.
Hawthorn Essendon.
I've got my boy Will Day in there to watch, but anyway, it's is this something that, relieves our fears of Warple a little bit more? Like, what are we thinking in terms of confidence on, as non-owners, jumping on him as maybe a way to get some cash to fix up some of our rookies?
I found it really interesting because our concerns on Warple were almost on display within that game. So from my understanding of watching the scores, he had almost 40 points in a quarter.
40 in the first quarter.
And then he ended the half on, 40?
I think it was 39 or something like that. If I have a look here. So, 32 in the first quarter. He must have lost a few late in that quarter because we did see, I think he was at 40.
Early on, there was a 40, wasn't there? So, for me, that kind of exemplified the fact that he can score really quickly.
In the second quarter.
Exactly. He can score quickly, and then it can dry out really quick. And so, that's not only shown,
35 in quarter 3. And then, if I look at quarter 4, I'm still scrolling down. I must have missed him. Where is he? But
so I think it's not only shown week to week, but it's shown within the game. His scoring can go obnoxiously good, and it can also go obnoxiously bad. So that it didn't.
22 in the last quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. He's probably not the guy that I'll be jumping on.
Did we touch on Sheed?
No, we didn't. We'll have to go back and talk about him. But
let's talk about him now. So, like, if we're comparing those two, because they are linked a lot. Like, if you have, and we are in this situation, are you considering like a Sheed down to a Warple to make cash to do something else? Because essentially you're...
Well, I can't. In terms of people. Sheed down to Warple. I didn't think Sheed's game was as bad as the
We watched a lot of that game, and he was near a lot of things. There was so many tackles that he could have had that teammates just gave away free just beforehand.
Ball just bouncing the other way, but he was putting himself in positions to score. I think he had 75% CBAs.
I think he was like the highest in the team, actually.
I think there's better things to do with your trades than to trade Sheed. I mean, it depends who you've got, and if you desperately want to go down to Warple and Sheed, you feel is your only option, then by all means do it. But I
wouldn't completely poo-poo it at this stage.
For most people, I think they have better things to do with their trades.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh no, this is Mitch's face where he's thinking about doing it.
I think it's part of potentially my plans. I need to get a little bit of cash.
Aren't you living the bloody high life?
To get one of those basement price rookies up to a Cade Chandler. So I need to find a little bit of cash, and with the rest of my team just doing so well.
It's hard to listen to, folks.
I'm sorry, mate. I'm really laying it on, aren't I? On purpose.
Nah, it's all good.
But I think that's something that I will consider when we talk about trade targets later on in the week. I'll have a bit more of a definitive answer of which way I am leaning to go. So, another one of this game, Will Setterfield, another one of those guys that popped a huge score, 122. Again, around that Dom Sheed sort of price tag, 10 marks, 6 tackles, 25 disposals. Did it in only 77% time on ground. Kicked a goal as well. I will just pump the brakes. He's not going to verse Hawthorn every week. And
the Hawthorn players aren't going to verse Essendon every week either.
That's right. So
it was a mark fest.
There was lots and lots of fantasy points to be had in this game. So, look, great round 1 start. If you have him, good on you.
Yeah.
I know a few credible coaches do have him on their side, and it's a good pick so far. I'm a little bit concerned that it's unrealistic. Like, if you just take these games out from the start of round 1, who scores more from here for the rest of the season, Sheed or Setterfield? What are your thoughts? What was Setterfield's CBAs actually from this game? Let me have a quick look.
Setterfield's 648. Look,
So Setterfield was second behind Parrish in terms of CBA. So the role was there.
That's what I mean. I think the Setterfield role is actually a pretty solid one. I think they've brought a fella in. They're going, you're playing in the guts.
Wasn't there talk about him like tagging and stuff like that potentially from games?
From my understanding, I don't know.
Caldwell was supposed to be their tagger. He only had 2 CBAs in the game.
I don't know Essendon inside and out, but I don't think I'd be wasting somebody as talented as Setterfield on a tag. Yeah, look, I can see him outscoring Sheed. I still don't think it's a trade I'm going to make this week.
It's a scenario that could definitely happen. I'll have to go through and maybe even watch some of this game to see what I get from the eye test. But he's definitely someone that we need to consider as an option with that role. The stats say that he's got a good role there. And if the game style is that they are chipping the ball around, which again we saw in the practice game, we've seen a little bit here now as well, can lend itself to some good scoring. So. Not someone I considered too highly in the preseason, but I think maybe someone that I might have overlooked.
Yeah, could make us reconsider.
Let's go to the final game of the round, the Freo Dockers versus the St Kilda Saints. Our boy, Hayden Young, talk about your move here.
Well, this
was the one positive thing that you had on the weekend.
It was. I was, what would it have been? It would have been Saturday night, really late. I was laying there in bed, mulling things over, and I thought, I need to be proactive. I need to do something before lockout to try and get this Sherry situation sorted. And so what I came to was Dawson down to Young. So it made me some points on the weekend, and it also made me some cash to fix some things up with, which is really, it was nice to finish on a good note.
Yeah. So our boy Hayden Young, 118, outscored Nick Dacos, by the way. Just want to quietly slip that one in there, because I know they were compared a lot in the preseason.
How interesting was that Freo scoring in the back line?
Luke Ryan, 156, Brennan Cox, 141, 20 marks for Brennan Cox. Luke Ryan at 13, as did Hayden Young.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're chipping it around. Jordan Clark had 11 marks as well. So, still sticking with that game style, chipping the ball around there. So,
yeah, I think St Kilda's forward line let them do it far too easily.
Boot the ball out, when they were stuck in their defensive 50, just to get it out, and they picked off a few that way.
They did. I don't think it's going to happen that way every week. I think
we're looking at defenders against St Kilda. I think is one thing I'm also taking away from this.
Yeah,
we saw it in the preseason with the Essendon defenders. We've seen it again here now. So
yeah,
I think that's something to keep in mind. But they do have a friendly run still, St Kilda. Freo. So up against North this week. Who would you rather go to? Say you've got to fix up a Tom Stewart or someone like that. Would you rather trade in Hayden Young or Nick Dacos? If you had to go to one. I'm still Hayden Young, personally.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, I'm going to revert back to the thing I said in the very first podcast we did.
Who do you like to watch?
Exactly. From this point, I'm not going to make the fuck-ups that I had this
weekend. That was your rule, man.
It was my rule. I went away from my rule, and even though I think Nick Dacos is going to pop out 70s in the next 6 weeks at some point,
to watch him at least.
I like to watch him. The guy...
At least fall back on that if it goes pear-shaped.
For me, Hayden Young and Nick Dacos are almost a little bit of they're like a juxtaposition, aren't they? You've got Hayden Young, who's just an immensely talented footballer, great kick, but he's not just running around demanding every single possession.
Yeah.
When Nick Dacos is in the vicinity, he's screaming for it. He's moving
hands
sideways.
up.
He's getting on the
Absolutely.
45s.
Almost too much, really.
So at least you can sit there and think, my bloke's trying.
Yeah.
My bloke is trying to score for my fantasy team. Whereas Hayden, even though Hayden Young scored a 118, I was actually frustrated watching it. We were watching it together. And
he could have gone way bigger, honestly.
If he was like Dacos, I reckon in that same game, Dacos would have scored 160.
Oh, 100%. Dacos
you know what I mean?
Crazy in that back line.
So there's my long answer to your question.
Yeah. Look, okay, you're going to go Dacos. I'm still going to go Young just because, again, the matchup against Port Adelaide this week, Hayden Young's coming up against Kangaroos. Their price is still very similar. Look, I think at the end of the year, they're going to be very close. So for me, it's just almost like the immediate return of that. Maybe you're going to be able to get Dacos a little bit cheaper down the line a little bit as well. If he has a few tough runs, I think he might have a few tags coming up
at the end
in
of
a few weeks as well. So
Hayden Young's staying in the team.
Yeah, you've got him. We're on the ride now, man. We're on the Hayden Young ride now. So, and also we'll talk about a guy that we didn't have on our captain's choices because of a tag, but he didn't end up getting tagged. Andrew Brayshaw scored a 114. The tag actually went to Caleb Sarong in that game, which I never would have predicted.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I don't know if it was a hard tag, but more of just like a run-with role. But, yeah, Brayshaw, they let him do his thing. He got 7 tackles, 4 marks, 114. You know, the hard matchup that we thought at the start of the year, he went over his price. So, if you started with him as a starting selection, I think that's going to be a good one because, again, we were concerned about this game, but, again, we know that they have a good run coming up against North Melbourne this week. So he will be featuring quite highly in the captains this week, I would guess. So
definitely. You want to talk about your skipper for the weekend?
Yeah, Jackie Steele. He just got there in the end. We were cheering that last little +6 at the end to get him over the 100 mark.
He almost didn't kick it before the siren.
Oh, he took his time. What did he mark it like 17 seconds to go, and he's just holding it there.
Just assessed all his options, mate.
I'm like, just kick the ball, Jack. Give me that +3. But yeah, 102. Slight concerns for me just in the game style of a St Kilda. By no means am I considering trading him, but a little bit concerned that he might not be the 115 guy that I initially predicted him to be at the start of the season. He might just be that 108 to 110 guy, which is still fine. Like, he's a guy that he's lowly owned. He is under 10% owned. and we know he has a ceiling. So I'm still happy to have him in my side, and I'll keep backing him. He might even be, again, my captain this week if my VC doesn't work again. So.
And when you still anticipate a guy to be a top 8 mid, you're not making that really reactionary trade at the start of the year, are you, when you've got other things you can do?
He was still the number one scorer in the Steels team, and obviously when you've got a team like Freo who possess the ball like...
In the Steels team?
Sorry, what did I say?
St Kilda.
St Kilda's team.
He's had the team named after him now.
Skipper, mate. Come on. It's his team.
The St Kilda Steels.
That's got a nice ring to it, I reckon. But yeah, so I think he's fine. I'm not considering trading him, and I don't think you guys should either as well. So... we talked a little about Sean Darcy as well, so I think he's a good option if you're looking to fix that up. I'm not jumping on the Luke Ryan or Brennan Cox.
Luke Ryan will give you 150, then I'll give you 70.
Yeah, Brennan Cox, I know, yes, he had 20 marks. This will be his highest score of the year, I would go to expect. I just haven't seen it enough for me to confidently jump on. I'm not mucking around with players like that. Anyone else for us to touch on in this game? Caleb Sarong. If you were a Caleb Sarong owner, what would you be doing in that situation? Are you giving another week, considering the fact that he was tagged and he's still pumped out, 29 disposals? Yeah,
I think you are, especially because it was a weird tag. It's not one that I think everyone will go to.
No, I don't think you're going to see that often.
Ross does some interesting things.
It's just when you compare him to players like LDU and Tom Green at a similar price point.
Well, it depends who you
really
don't
good.
have, doesn't it, in terms of what you do with your trades.
It'll be a low priority.
Yes.
It could be a luxury move if you've got nothing better to do. Say you've got Cade Chandler.
Yeah.
You know,
you've got nothing better to do.
You've got no...
to have nothing better to do.
If you've got all the main mid prices, or like
you
say you're just missing one of those mid prices, then Sarong might be a ticket to get there. But yeah, low priority for me. Rowan Marshall.
All good.
We're not concerned, are we?
Well, even if you are concerned, you're not trading him.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's really no point in talking about it. Where he's at least getting another week for everyone. I'd be shocked if there's anyone out there advocating for trading him based on one poor score.
I'm pretty sure Freo were the hardest team to score against for Rucks last year.
Yeah.
Sean Darcy is a very tough Ruck to go up against. He just bashes you. Dominated the hit-outs there. So I think whenever we have someone come up against Freo with those Rucks, expect probably a poor end of their average. So he had the role, not worried about him.
Yeah, I think it would just be a poor choice, and also like who are you trading to? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not.
It'd
like
be pretty reactionary to
grab
go from him to like a Wits or something like that. I think that you'd find yourself similar to that Rory Laird kind of thing.
Exactly.
It might be flipped the next week. So
don't bother.
I would not be reacting to that. And the last guy I want to talk about here is Philippou, Matthias Philippou, 54. It's a pass. It could have been worse.
Who's that? Sorry.
The Philippousis.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't recognise who it was.
Right,
now that you've said Philippousis, I understand.
Philippousis. He was my F6. Was he on your ground too?
He was on my ground.
Yeah, I toyed up with a lot of people faded him onto the bench, so I was a little nervous with having him on my field. I am still a little nervous having on my field there, but
the Sheasel 118 helped.
Yes,
do you know what I mean?
It did make it feel a little bit better.
It's like you've got an average of sort of 70, 80 between your rookies. So
but you know, I think he's a kind of a guy that you could sort of see, you know, with a bit more experience, a bit more confidence that he could, he could be the Cade Chandler next week, or he could be the Luke Pedler and get those sort of out of the box scores and work. He was working up the ground, so I liked the way he goes about it. I just hope the role doesn't prevent him and he drops like a really good stinker on us next week. But I think in terms of structure, I'm fixing up my back line if I'm doing a structure trade first before I'm fixing up my forward line.
Yeah, I think that will be the same for most people.
But the good thing is I think he's locked into your side. I don't think he's getting dropped or anything like that anytime soon. He played pretty well.
Beautiful.
That will do it for us today in terms of the review. Yeah. Lots happening round one, mate. So
it is for sure.
So let us know down in the comments, guys, if you're watching over on YouTube, how your team went. What did you score? What are you ranked after round one? Remember, it's just one sample size, so throw those rankings pretty much out the window. I'm talking to you, Luke, here.
Thanks, man.
Remember, it's just 1 week. We've got plenty of time to catch up. Podcast will be coming later on this week where we'll go through all of the trade targets. We will, unfortunately, be recording after the Thursday night game. So I'll do a little bit of a tweet out, maybe on where I sit with players like a Doherty. Who are Carlton versing, actually, by the way? Is it Geelong? I want to say.
We have
next week.
Colts.
Not this week.
Geelong.
Yeah.
You got
so
it.
I think the only real captain option there is a Doherty. So if you have him on your team, it's a VC option. But the rest of the captain options will go through on Friday. And also after the teams drop, our reactions there and our big trade targets. So I think that will do it for us today, guys. And hopefully I can send us out here. But make sure you guys give us a subscribe. Make sure you like the video. And we'll see you guys next time. Laters.